Hello, thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm going to talk to you about a framework for integrated land and landscape management. The Framework for Integrated Land and Landscape Management, FILLM, is a vision for a new approach for landscape management in Ireland, a systems-based approach that takes account of all components of the natural environment: air, water, ecosystems, rocks, land and landscape. Takes account of society's needs today and into the future, and it addresses nature's interlinkages and interdependencies. Our actions need to be cohesive, holistic and integrated in order to do this landscape management successfully. Why do we need an integrated land and landscape management approach? It provides a means of connecting national and international policies and objectives. Internationally, we have recently the objectives of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the new EU Green Deal, there's a new future CAP policy, the Water Framework Directive objectives need to be addressed, the EU Biodiversity Strategy, Habitats, Drinking Water Directive and Urban Wastewater Treatment Directives all need to be addressed and their objectives met. On a national scale, we have dairy sustainability, Ireland Acclimatise consultation, the Teagasc functional land management approach. The EPA have identified 7 key environmental actions, and the National Water Resources Plan is in development, and the National Planning Framework is being implemented. Recently, the EPA Director General Laura Burke stated that an overarching national environmental policy includes short, medium and long-term commitments to a clean green island is needed. Our framework fits into many of those objectives, helps deliver them, we think. The objective of this particular session is to present our vision of a whole of environment systems-based approach. It is to illustrate how catchments are natural landscape units for ecosystem management, and we hope to demonstrate how the FILLM builds on integrated catchment management to provide an integrated systems approach that includes not only water, but also ecosystems, biodiversity, soils, and climate. Our catchments provide a number of ecosystem services, atmospheric services that include rainfall, solar energy, and wind energy. Our geosystem services include groundwater, pollution attenuation, aggregates, minerals, oil and gas, geothermal energy, geoheritage, recreational and tourism, and spiritual. For our ecosystem services, we get well-being, education, carbon sequestration, pollination, air quality regulation, water purification, timber, food, habitats, surface water, all services provided naturally to us through our catchments. Our definition of a catchment is a river catchment, we believe, is the appropriate land-based organisation for water and environmental management. Our definition is a multifunctional, topographically based, dynamic, multiple scale socio-physical system defined by overground and underground hydrology, connecting land, water, ecosystems and people, and used as the basis for environmental analysis, management and governance. Integrated catchment management and managing complex catchments is not easy. There are environmental outcomes required for water quality protection and improvements, for ecosystem protection and restoration, for soil protection and enhancement, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. There are also community outcomes required for health and well-being, and for sustainable rural communities. There are many challenges as well with the way catchments are managed. There are mental, structural and organisational silos are common. Specialist policies, departments, disciplines, social groups, pockets of knowledge are narrowly based, often with narrowly based objectives. Specialist knowledge, while necessary, can lead to narrow outcomes, inefficiencies and ineffectiveness. So currently there is no structure, no framework to overcome these challenges. There is no system to help ensure integration and successful environmental protection and enhancement of all environmental spheres, air, water, soils, ecosystems together. There's nothing to help ensure compliance with the multitude of EU directives and associated regulations. There's nothing to help ensure that trade-offs are considered. To link all of these together for optimum efficiency and effectiveness, it is vital that this happens. To help ensure local community involvement and to help ensure the economic and social well-being of local communities. So in August 2020, Fóram Uisce proposed the framework for integrated land and landscape management as an approach to address the interconnectedness of natural systems, to promote less siloed management, and to achieve positive environmental outcomes in all realms. The new vision, a whole of environmental approach. It's a systems approach that requires multidisciplinary, multi-objective and multi-stakeholder engagement. It supports a balanced evaluation of all relevant issues. So the framework for integrated land and landscape management, we call it FILLM. It's a whole systems-based approach. It uses the catchment as the land unit area for management. It requires multi-stakeholder engagement for strategic environmental outcomes. Atmospheric systems, geosystems, and ecosystems are interconnected and interdependent. They need to be managed in an integrated way with agencies working together to maximize actions. Catchment-based community involvement is key for social and economic well-being and for positive environmental outcomes. It builds on the integrated catchment management approach. So the first step or stage in the process is to build partnerships with local communities and other agencies and to identify issues or areas of concern. The second stage is to develop a community vision for water and ecosystems. You need to characterize the catchments based on existing information, but adding to that catchment walks, targeted monitoring, identification of pressure sources, evaluating hydrological pressures, pollutant load reduction analysis, and location of critical source areas. Identify and evaluate management strategies for protection and for improvement. Locate areas for appropriate actions within the critical source areas. You need to design and implement a program based on achieving the required environmental objectives, using the right measure in the right place approach, economic analysis, and setting milestones. You need to implement the program using metrics to track progress. The progress needs to be measured, analyze trends and outcomes, and make adjustments if necessary. Consult with stakeholders at all stages. You need to identify and take account of co-benefits for biodiversity, carbon sequestration, and greenhouse gas emission reductions at all stages. Using the FILLM approach for water and biodiversity protection, will result in the implementation of the Habitats and Water Framework Directives. That's the objective. Integration and prioritisation for climate, water and biodiversity. The outcomes that will be achieved by using this approach includes at stage 1, you will have a community vision and you'll have a desk-based study. At stage 2, catchment characterisation, you have identified the critical source areas for improvement and for protection. In stage 3, the actions are evaluated and prioritised for environmental outcomes. So the right measure in the right place is identified and agreed. At stage 4, the action plan design is implemented and communicated for all catchments. And at stage 5 is the evaluation, and it's the measuring of progress and adjustments that's needed. The FILLM is an overarching approach, but within it, you have the subcatchment site. Field assessment is the first step. Then you have the identification of the critical source areas and the source pathway receptor for environmental management model. The integrated catchment management, which is already being carried out. And then the FILLM is an overarching and encompasses all of the others to include all environmental systems. What are the benefits of using this approach? Integrated catchment management is the core approach and philosophy of the Water Framework Directive implementation and water management in the river basin management plans. FILLM includes and reconfigures integrated catchment management for wider environmental protection and enhancement. The FILLM approach can be used for protection and management of habitats, such as the SACs. It requires stakeholder and community involvement at all stages. It explicitly includes consideration of carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emission reductions. It encourages environmental policy coherence and integration. It encourages interdisciplinary and multi-organisation collaboration and discourages silos. It provides the basis for a shared vision for land and landscape utilisation and management. It takes account of co-benefits and trade-offs, and it is being promoted by the Water Fórum and Fóram Uisce. So in summary, protecting and enhancing our environmental inheritance is challenging. And in the current complex situation in Ireland with the climate crisis, water quality deterioration, biodiversity loss, and the need for food production, economic and social and environmental well-being. In this situation, siloed approaches on their own are not enough. All environmental spheres of air, water, soils, ecosystems are interrelated and interlinked. Managing these components in the context of society's need for food, good health, and economic well-being must be undertaken in a cohesive, holistic, systemic, and integrated manner, with community engagement throughout. Otherwise, the efforts will be ineffective and inefficient. For the Framework for Integrated Land and Landscape Management is proposed as a means of providing this holistic, overarching, systematic approach that is needed. FILLM provides or builds on the integrated catchment management approach and reframes it to include all environmental components, including, for instance, all environmental objectives, spatial planning, including local area plans, infrastructure development, and food and timber production. It is the appropriate and relevant measures and actions that are key. FILLM, if adapted and used, will enable consideration of the co-benefits, synergies and trade-offs, and therefore help to ensure optimum results for the efforts and resources used. Well, I'd like to acknowledge the work that has already happened before the development of FILLM. FILLM is based on the learnings from the EPA Catchments Unit and their implementation of the integrated catchment management approach.